I want to touch on the very last topic of the episode, and that is the Game Awards. The Game Awards. So the nominations for the Game Awards came out, and there were some befuddling choices. Now, I know the Game Awards are dumb. They're dumb. It's just an award. It's an industry awards show. It doesn't mean anything. But, like, hey, it's a topic. And there's a lot of... I'm interested in it just because there are things that I care about that could be announced there. So I'm definitely going to do another live stream of it this year. And I very much look forward to that because it was really fun the last time. Hopefully I won't get copyright claimed and have the video or like the VOD unavailable because of the frickin' shitty fourth Matrix movie decided to play a minute from there, and it was dumb. So here's the thing. I don't care about the majority of this show. I know that the showrunners don't care about the majority of the show or the nominees because they skip over like half of them to make room for more announcements. So I actually went through and looked at every game that was nominated. And I think I've played maybe 3 of them. Let's see. I'm just clicking through them right now. I'm waiting for one that I've played. Performance. Games for Impact. None of these. Best ongoing. 14. I played Final Fantasy 14. We're 14 again. All right. Still one on the board. VR, AR? Nope. Action? No. No. Fighting. Yes. Okay, fighting. And this is the main one that I wanted to talk about. King of Fighters. Okay, so the only 4 games that were nominated that I've played. FF14, King of Fighters 15, Multiverses, and Vampire Survivors. Okay, I'm going to be honest. I do not care about most of these categories. I care about fighting. And if you've been paying any attention to the fighting game community when this came out, you would have heard about this, but I'm going to go over it because it bears repeating. So the best fighting category is nonsense. Let's look at the selections, the nominees. DNF Duel. So I looked at this and I was like, wow, it really was kind of a quiet year for fighting games. I didn't even realize 15 came out this year. I thought it was like last year. DNF Duel. Okay, makes sense. JoJo's Bizarre Adventure All-Star Battle R. A re-release, refresh of a game from 2013. King of Fighters 15. Okay, makes sense. Multiverses. Makes sense. Sifu. What? Huh? Why is Sifu on this list? Why is Sifu nominated for best fighting? Like, then you look at the category and it says best fighting for the best game designed primarily around head-to-head combat. And you start thinking about that and you're like, what does that mean? What does head-to-head mean? Do they mean like a PvP game? Or a game with combat? Because at this point, here's why I think this is dumb. And people, I've even seen people make arguments about like, oh well, Sifu, it's got kind of fighting game-ish mechanics, and like here's the problem. So from what I understand, Sifu was a pretty well-received game, and apparently it's a really good brawler beat 'em up with some a really good combat system. But it's not a fighting game. Why is it in this category? It's in like best action. Why is it in this category? And legitimately, I realized when looking through all the nominees, there seems to be a hard rule of every category needs exactly 5 nominations. And when you have a genre that has sort of a slow year like this, I guess they will... But then there's other points that people would bring up about, like, well, if you're going to include All-Star Battle R, which has, like, some new content, but it's not... I mean, comparing DNF Duel to All-Star Battle R, like, these are not equivalent things, right? But if you're going to include something like ASBR, you aren't going to include, like, Capcom Fighting Collection? What about the KOF 98 rollback release that came out? What about anything? What about any other, like, refresh kind of release? Nothing? No, you're gonna pick Sifu. Why? Why is that? And here's my problem. Is that it's really easy in this... So there's been this whole conversation about, like, well, most people agree that Sifu was a dumb choice to have on this list. With no shade to Sifu, it's just it doesn't belong here. And it kind of kicked off this conversation about, well, what is a fighting game? And in this kind of conversation, it's really easy to lose the forest for the trees, if that makes sense. Because here's the way that I look at it, is that once you start calling something like Sifu should not be considered a fighting game, because if you're going to categorize it as a fighting game, the term fighting game starts to lose usefulness. So we have genre categories because they are useful. These aren't just arbitrary things that we make up, right? We group pieces of media together because it's useful to categorize them into things that have similar qualities. And video game genres are already a mess as is because there's so many different factors that can be different. We split up genres by whether or not the camera is first or third person sometimes. Not even always, just sometimes. Because some people like one or the other, and sometimes it makes a difference. But we use them because it's useful that you can say this is a fighting game. And when I tell you, and of course the term fighting game, I think I went over this even last episode, that term is like, okay, you tell that to a layman and they don't quite have an idea of what it is. Once you like know what a fighting game is, and you say, okay, you have so many ideas of it in your head. You got Street Fighter, King of Fighters, Mortal Kombat, Tekken and Soul Calibur. Smash Brothers, yeah. All of these things, you have a clear idea in your head of what they are. And because they're different, like obviously Smash is a different kind of fighting game, but they're close enough, right? They're close enough that you can see the overlap and the appeal from one audience to the other. So like, that's why we create subgenre labels. So we just had fighting game. Then we have traditional 2D fighter. And that's where you throw in your KOF and your Street Fighter and those. And Mortal Kombat, I guess, is kind of in there too. Then you got like the 3D fighters. You get Tekken and Soul Calibur, Virtua Fighter, Dead or Alive. Then you have kind of like 2D anime fighters, which are things like Guilty Gear and BlazBlue and Melty Blood. With games that, you know, they have a different feeling. There's a different appeal, right? And platform fighters, of course, have jumping and well, not jumping, but like it's like there's platforms. There's like stages and geography and stuff like that. And there's like a different sort of allocation of movement mechanics and stuff like that. These are useful labels to have because when I say there's a new platform fighter, and it's using Warner Brothers owned characters, you immediately, without even having to see footage of multiverses, you immediately have an idea of kind of what it is, and you have an idea of whether or not that's even going to appeal to you. If I say, a movement shooter or a boomer shooter, immediately you say that to me and I'm like, oh, okay, let's check it out, versus like a tactical squad-based shooter. I'm like, okay, that sounds fucking boring. Give me the circle strafing. Let me circle strafe. That's why genre labels are useful. And I think that you have to draw the line as a community of calling certain things. If there's a so here's the thing, is like, it's so much more useful to call Sifu a beat 'em up or a brawler than a fighting game, because there's already a category. Like if things like Final Fight, all those other beat 'em up games, if those never existed and that was never a genre, let's say, maybe we could create a new subgenre for fighting games, single player brawler fighters or something like that. It would be dumb, but it would like, okay. But there's already a category that it fits better in. And if it fits better in that category, throw it in there. It's way more useful to say this is a beat 'em up than this is a fighting game for something like Sifu. So that's like, that was kind of like my main point about genres. I think it's really easy to start getting into, like, we stop thinking of how the utilitarian nature of genre titles, because we kind of like, I don't know, we sort of take that, we forget about it, and then we kind of end up making a bunch of dumb terms like Metroidvania, which are not actually very descriptive. So like, that was my rant about video game genres. If there's a game that comes out, you kind of look at it and you go, okay, let's put it into these categories where it fits most closely, where it has a similar appeal. Excuse me. It doesn't have to have the same exact mechanics or systems, but it has the same kind of appeal. And then within that genre, if it's significantly different enough that, like, hey, maybe someone who likes Counter-Strike isn't going to like Quake, you can just divide it and call it, oh, it's more of a movement-based shooter than something like that, right? Than Counter-Strike is. That's where subgenres get created, and these are all for the purpose of making it easier to find games that you like, to recommend games to people that they might like, and for a honestly, for like a developer and a publisher, for the game maker to be able to market to the appropriate audience. So I think this whole Sifu nonsense, I just voted for it. Okay, thank God. I could rescind my vote. I accidentally clicked on it. Fuck, I haven't voted yet. I wanted to vote on stream because it's not going to fucking matter. And I don't care. But, right, okay, that threw me way off. What was I going to say? It's so alarmed.